On the day of Trump's inauguration, January 20th, 2017, Richard Spencer was punched in the face by an unknown assailant while being interviewed on television for the Australian Broadcasting Company. Spencer is president of the National Policy Institute, a well-known white supremacist think tank, and is an advocate for peaceful ethnic cleansing. Spencer coined the whitewashing term for neo-Nazis in the contemporary world, namely the so-called alt-right.
Neo-Nazis don't love me, they kind of hate me, actually.
Following the KKK, neo-Nazi.
Those people don't like me,
Are you
to be
like
honest.
the hipster version of the neo-Nazi movement?
It's, Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
The masked assailant, dressed in black, was chased down and confronted by an observer who recorded the encounter on his cell phone. Reports indicate that he was part of an anti-fascist protest that took place in the background of Spencer's interview. In the age of social media, the video of Spencer being punched immediately went viral, as did the question, is it okay to punch a Nazi? Google Trends registered significant online activity. The popular responses to the attack ranged from humorous memes to videos of the attack synced to popular music.
It's, Pepe's become kind of a Pepe's become kind of a Pepe's become kind of a
The attack on Spencer also became fodder for analysis among talking heads in the media. Major written articles appeared in such venues as The Nation, Mother Jones, and others, while countless talking heads addressed the attack in broadcasts around the world.
The video that came out of the alt-devil movement leader, Richard Spencer, he got sucker punched by a white freedom fighter.
Racist, white supremacist, white separatist, Nazi, Richard Spencer being punched in the face by a protester.
Spencer, a white racist.
Neo-Nazi Richard Spencer got punched in the face during Trump's inauguration.
Pundits on the left and right have been mostly united in condemning the attack. Peter Van Buren of The Nation makes a strong case for liberal values against punching Nazis, essentially arguing that free speech in America includes hate speech, as guaranteed by the First Amendment, and that a license to punch Nazis commits one to a slippery slope that threatens everyone's speech. Many online argue the traditional case that violence only generates more violence and thus undoes the utility of punching Nazis. And still other critics argue that nonviolent protest is actually more effective than violence. For example, in an essay of 2008, Maria Stephan and Erica Chenoweth argue that nonviolent resistance, such as symbolic protests, economic boycotts, and labor strikes, are measurably more effective than violence itself. As for philosopher Slavoj Žižek, he agrees that punching Nazis can never be condoned, arguing that it is better tactically to just ignore and treat the fascist as a non-person. As he says, slapping him is too much of a recognition. On the other side, populist support for punching Nazis in the head is surprisingly strong. In this context, Woody Allen's quip from Manhattan in 1979 has gained wide currency online.
Well, a satirical piece in the Times is one thing, but bricks and baseball bats really gets right to the point.
Oh, but really, biting satire is always better than physical force. Think
No, physical force is always better with Nazis because it's hard to satirize a guy with shiny boots.
There have been many defenses of violence as a tool, however ironical among progressives, worried about the violent rhetoric and history of fascists. Rarely, however, is a defense of violence spelled out in terms as clear as those defending non-violence. Defenses of punching Nazis are mostly couched in the sardonic, world-weary realism of progressives afraid of recent events in the wake of Trump's election. And they have a lot to be worried about. Attacks on mosques, Jewish synagogues, and cemeteries, as well as targeted murders, have all spiked in the weeks following the election, more so after Trump's inauguration. Moreover, the president's travel ban targeting Muslims has helped remake much of America into a safe space for white supremacists, where Richard Spencer is an eager poster child. Proponents of punching these Nazis also point to the historical record. noting that the labor and civil rights movements would not have succeeded without organized, armed, and sometimes violent opposition. This sentiment is perfectly expressed by Royce Granton, who, in a book of 2015, writes that some like to say that violence never solved anything, but this is a comforting lie. Perhaps there is a position between principled rejection of violence and principled use of violence. Online arguments often quip that any Nazi is a good Nazi to punch. It makes for a funny quip. But principled demands are not very nuanced when it comes to promoting a better future. In this regard, it is possible to argue for strategic violence, one that takes into account that Spencer, for example, isn't an ordinary Nazi, is indeed a spokesperson for a hate group and was spreading his hateful beliefs on television. Punching him in the head generated a worldwide conversation about fascism in Trump's America and undermined Spencer's whitewashed, media-friendly form of alt-right nonsense. So perhaps that particular punch and others like it can be justified. Perhaps the ends have justified the means. On the other hand, nothing good that happened by punching this Nazi in the face couldn't also have been created by pushing a pie in Spencer's face. As comedians and protesters have done to deserving politicians for decades, we already know that it's an assault unlikely to offend an otherwise sympathetic public. In a similar light, we propose a new movement likely to make the same critical point without pushing even a pie into the face of deserving Nazis and other members of the so-called alt-right. Instead of punches or pies, we call for a worldwide Hug a Nazi campaign. Wherever these odious folks go, whenever they appear before the media, they should be inundated with hugs upon hugs upon hugs. Maybe one or two of these sad sacks will snap out of their spell and rejoin the ranks of civilization. As for the rest, the torment of being hugged by the very people they despise and hugged repeatedly will affect the same change as a good punch to the face. They will once again be forced back into hiding, off the streets and our social media feeds, because they will experience again and again that there is no place safe from the humiliation of being hugged by the very people they hate. Queers, straights, trans, blacks, Jews, Asians, Latinos and Latinas, liberal progressives, and really every decent person everywhere. And so, we announce, huggers of the world, unite.
I am afraid that this video of me being punched is going to become this like terrible meme on Twitter, and I'm going to feel the punch a million more times when I see it, every day.